Everyone laughed when they found the trapdoor. Not because it was hidden, because it was beneath a horse barn. Imagine choosing to sleep under horses. One rancher laughed so hard, he nearly dropped his hat. Another shook his head. That girl has finally lost her senses. No one understood why 18-year-old Clara Dawson spent every evening disappearing beneath the stable floor instead of sleeping in the loft above. By the time the worst blizzard in 50 years buried the valley, the laughter would be gone. And every person who mocked her would wish they had built the same thing. Clara Dawson was 18 when she lost her home. Her father had raised horses his entire life. Her mother cared for the family's small dairy. After a harsh fever claimed both within a single year, the ranch passed to Clara's older cousin, Miles. At first he promised nothing would change. Then cattle prices collapsed. Hay became expensive. Winter approached. One evening he finally admitted what he had been avoiding. I can't keep the ranch running and feed another person. Clara quietly folded a saddle blanket. I've worked beside you every day. I know. I've trained horses. I know. I've repaired fences. I know. Then why? Miles stared toward the darkening pasture. Because winter doesn't make exceptions. The next morning her belongings waited beside the gate. A bedroll, cooking pot, her father's carpenter's toolbox, 2 wool blankets, a lantern, $36. Everything she owned. She walked north toward abandoned grazing land. For nearly 2 weeks she searched. Old cabins had collapsed. Stone houses already belonged to someone. Even abandoned barns were either falling apart or far too exposed to the wind. Late one afternoon, she reached an old horse barn standing alone beside a creek. Its owner had died years earlier. The surrounding pasture had returned to wild grass. The roof still looked solid. The stone foundation remained level. Several horse stalls survived surprisingly well. She stepped inside. Dust covered everything. Old harnesses hung from wooden pegs. Empty feed bins lined one wall. The building smelled of aged timber and dry hay. It wasn't home, but it could become one. She bought the abandoned property for $30, leaving only $6. The valley laughed immediately. She bought a barn. Maybe she'll marry one of the horses. No, the horses probably have better judgment. Clara ignored them. Instead, she studied the building carefully. The horses had always remained warmer than people expected during winter. Why? She watched sunlight fall across the floor. Listened to the wind. Examined the thick stone foundation. Then she remembered something her father once told her. Horses give off an incredible amount of warmth. At the time, she never thought much about it. Now those words refused to leave her mind. That evening she began digging. Not outside. Inside the barn. Beneath an empty stall. One shovel at a time. She dug straight down nearly 6 feet before widening the space beneath the floor. The earth remained dry. Firm. Easy to support. Over several weeks the chamber slowly grew. Stone walls reinforced the sides. Heavy timber beams supported the ceiling. A sturdy oak trapdoor disappeared beneath fresh wooden planks inside the horse stall. Nobody noticed. From above the stall looked completely ordinary. Below lay an entirely different world. Clara built shelves into the earth walls. A narrow sleeping platform. Food storage. Lantern hooks. A tiny stone stove with a carefully hidden chimney vent running through an unused corner of the barn wall. Every evening she improved something. Tom Grady discovered the secret first. The trapper arrived while checking abandoned properties nearby. He noticed Clara vanish into the empty stall. Curious, he followed. What happened to you? Clara smiled. Come here. She lifted the trapdoor. Tom blinked. Well, he climbed down the ladder. The underground room surprised him. Warm earth surrounded every wall. Lantern light reflected from smooth stone. Shelves already held jars of preserved vegetables, blankets, candles, and neatly stacked supplies. Tom slowly turned in a circle. You built this yourself? Clara nodded. A little every day. Tom looked upward toward the ceiling. The horses will stand directly above this. I hope so. He frowned. Why? Clara smiled. They're warmer than any fireplace. Tom stared, then slowly nodded. I've trapped these mountains 20 years. I never thought about that. Word eventually spread. People climb the hill simply to laugh. The girl sleeps underground. Beneath horse manure. Maybe she's becoming a mole. Clara never answered. Instead, she improved the hidden room. She hung thick wool blankets around the ladder opening, built another storage shelf, lined the sleeping platform with straw beneath quilts, stored split firewood beneath the bed. Every improvement trapped more warmth. One cold evening Tom returned. 3 horses now occupied the stalls above. The underground room felt different. Warmer. He looked upward. You can actually feel it. Clara smiled. Their body heat travels through the floor. Tom placed his hand against the ceiling beam. It's warm. Exactly. The earth insulated the room. The horses added gentle warmth all night. The little stove needed surprisingly little fuel. Tom laughed. You've turned a stable into a furnace. Unfortunately, the valley still believed she was wasting her time. Until the weather rider arrived. Nobody welcomed weather riders before winter, especially frightened ones. The entire settlement gathered outside the trading post beneath dark gray clouds. The rider climbed from his exhausted horse. Snow already clung to his coat. The northern passes have disappeared. Silence spread across the crowd. How bad? Someone asked. The rider looked toward the mountains. The strongest blizzard in 50 years. Nobody moved. Then came the warning. If your shelter loses heat. He paused. This storm will take everything you've stored for winter. That evening Tom rode to the abandoned horse barn one final time. Lantern light glowed softly beneath the stable floor. 3 horses quietly chewed hay overhead. Below them, Clara finished arranging another stack of firewood beside the little stove. The hidden bedroom beneath the barn looked ready. Tom looked around. The underground room everyone mocked. The strange shelter beneath the horses. The place nobody believed anyone would willingly live. Then he glanced toward the black clouds swallowing the mountains. You staying here? Clara rested one hand against the heavy oak trapdoor. Above her, the horses shifted quietly in their stalls. Below her, the earth held steady warmth. The little room felt safer than any cabin she had ever known. She smiled. I think the horses and I are about to discover who built the better winter home. Outside, the first heavy snowflakes drifted silently across the empty pasture. By morning, the great blizzard would arrive. The blizzard arrived before dawn, not with gentle snow, with a wall of wind that swallowed the valley. The horses became restless first. They stamped their hooves above Clara's hidden room. The old barn creaked beneath powerful gusts. Snow hammered the roof without pause. Clara climbed halfway up the ladder and listened. The storm sounded frightening. But below the floor, the little underground room remained calm. She closed the trapdoor. Immediately the noise faded. The earth swallowed the roar of the wind. Above her, the horses settled again. Their steady breathing drifted through the thick wooden floor. For the first time in days, Clara slept peacefully. Morning never really came. The windows upstairs showed nothing but white. Snow had buried half the barn doors. The wind still screamed across the pasture. Clara carried another armload of split firewood into the hidden room. Then she noticed something remarkable. The ceiling felt warm. Not hot. Warm. The 3 horses standing quietly above had turned the entire floor into a gentle radiator. Combined with the surrounding earth, the underground room held its temperature with very little fire. She only needed a few small logs to keep the little stove glowing. Late that afternoon came frantic pounding. Clara. She climbed into the barn and forced open one door against the drifting snow. Tom Grady stumbled inside, carrying a frightened little girl wrapped in blankets. Behind him came the girl's mother. Our chimney collapsed. Smoke had filled their cabin. They barely escaped. Without hesitation, Clara opened the trapdoor. Come down. The woman stopped at the bottom of the ladder. She stared around the underground room. Stone walls. Neatly stacked supplies. A warm bed. Dry firewood. Lantern light. The gentle sound of horses shifting overhead. She whispered, "This is beautiful." By the next morning, more people arrived. An elderly couple whose roof had partially collapsed. A ranch hand whose cabin door had frozen shut. 2 brothers who had nearly exhausted their firewood. Word spread quickly. Not about Clara. About the hidden room beneath the horse barn. The place everyone had laughed at. By sunset, 14 people sheltered underground. Children slept soundly beneath thick quilts. Soup simmered quietly on the small stove. The horses above continued eating hay, their body heat filtering through the heavy planks. No one shivered. Jacob Miller arrived on the 3rd day of the storm. The oldest carpenter in the valley slowly examined every detail. The support beams, the stone walls, the insulated trapdoor, the hidden chimney. Finally, he looked toward the ceiling. You know why this works? Everyone became quiet. Jacob smiled. Most people think the horses are heating the room. Clara looked up. They help. They do. Jacob nodded. But the real secret is balance. He rested one hand on the earth wall. The ground refuses to lose heat. Then he touched the ceiling. The horses replaced the little warmth that escapes. Tom laughed softly. So the barn and the earth worked together. Jacob smiled. Exactly. Outside the storm grew even worse. Day 4. Day 5. Day 6. Snow buried fences completely. Entire wagons disappeared beneath drifts. Several cabins collapsed under the weight of snow. The road into the valley vanished. Inside, the hidden room life settled into a routine. Clara carefully counted supplies every evening. Everyone helped. Children carried kindling. Adults melted snow for washing. Tom checked on the horses several times each day. The animals remained healthy. Their warmth never faded. On the 7th day, the weather rider finally reached the barn. He abandoned his exhausted horse halfway across the pasture and walked through chest-deep snow. After climbing into the underground room, he slowly removed his frozen gloves. Then he looked around. Families rested comfortably. Children laughed quietly. The stove burned only a handful of logs. The room remained warm. He shook his head. I've visited every settlement I could reach. Nobody interrupted. I've never seen anything like this. He looked toward Clara. I heard people talking about a girl who dug herself a bedroom beneath an old horse barn. He smiled. I expected desperation. His eyes moved around the room once more. What I found was the smartest winter shelter in the valley. Everyone laughed. Even Clara. Because hearing those words seemed impossible after months of being mocked. 3 days later, the wind finally stopped. Clara climbed into the barn. Sunlight streamed through gaps in the walls. She pushed open the great doors. Snow reached nearly halfway up the building. Across the valley, collapsed roofs and broken fences revealed the blizzard's destruction. Yet the old horse barn still stood proudly. The thick stone foundation had held firm. The horses survived. Every person beneath them survived. Spring slowly returned. Snow melted into green pastures. Wildflowers covered the hills. Life began again. One afternoon, Miles climbed the path to the barn. He removed his hat before speaking. I was wrong. Clara looked at him quietly. I shouldn't have sent you away. He handed her the deed to her parents' ranch. It's yours again. Clara accepted it with a grateful smile, then looked back toward the old barn. The hidden bedroom beneath its floor had become more than a shelter. It had become the place that saved 14 lives. I'll visit the ranch, she said softly. But this barn will always be home. Before the next winter, builders from every nearby settlement came to study her design. Many built insulated rooms beneath their own barns. Some connected them to root cellars. Others added thick trapdoors and earth-lined walls. They no longer laughed at the idea of sleeping beneath horses, because they had learned something the blizzard had taught them all. Warmth doesn't always come from a bigger fire. Sometimes it comes from understanding what has been quietly surrounding you all along.